Check the story out, guys. So, in A Mysterious Light, a segment of an ethnographic interview, Miller describes a strange light he saw once while hunting with his dogs in 1966. All at once, it was daylight, and I looked up to see what happened. There was a light about that big going up, drifting up the hill. When I looked and seen it, it just faded out. I've been in the Marines and know what airplane lights look like, and it was too big for that. When asked if he knew what it was, he offered, "I don't know what it was," but went on to explain, "If there is any such thing as a UFO, that's what that was." The unexplained light on a walk in the woods is typical of many stories of these kinds of encounters. It's not only the media that tells stories and represents these kinds of ideas. Documentation of the experiences and stories Americans tell each other is similarly important for understanding and interpreting what UFOs meant to 20th century America. Guys, if you've noticed, a lot of these accounts always seem to date back quite a few years ago, right? Like even with Bob Lazar, this happened in like before the 1980s, right? And it was just like after the 1980s that he started revealing this information. When he got close to discovering that, there's more going on in the world. It feels like all of these accounts were really old accounts, like before we were able to reach the level of technology that we have nowadays. And it almost seems like it was sort of a catalyst, a driving force for us to reach the level of technology that we've reached so far.
Real quick, Ace, I'm going to send you a link real quick. You can look at it too, Annie. This one is actually, this is another one that I was looking at that was real interesting. It was about
Zimbabwe, so this is in Africa, okay.
Yeah, this was a story about an alien landing in a school in Zimbabwe in 1994 and talking to 60 plus children.
Africa is not typically known by the mainstream for its UFO reports, but it is certainly ground zero for some of the strangest. It began as a calm, peaceful day at Ariel School in the small rural farming community of Rua, Zimbabwe, where on September 16, 1994, 62 of the school children ranging in age from 5 to 12 years old and of mixed ethnic heritage were out playing in the playground during their break time as their teachers had a school meeting indoors. The air was filled with laughter and merriment, but this was soon to change to gasps of alarm when something very strange materialized out of the unknown. What would transpire next has become one of the most interesting UFO encounters to come out of the continent of Africa, and which has never really been satisfactorily explained. There was allegedly a bright flash in the sky, and when the children looked up in bafflement, approaching the school were 3 or 4 silvery disc-like objects with what appeared to be lit portals around their edges. These mysterious objects reportedly would vanish and reappear some distance away several times, suggesting that they were either moving very fast or teleporting. Before one of the objects began to descend, following some electrical lines towards a brush-choked patch of overgrown feral land adjacent to the school grounds, where it eerily descended to disappear behind the gnarled trees and tangled underbrush. At this point, the kids were enthralled by what they were seeing, and one of the witnesses would later say of the object, "The thing, whatever it was beautiful. It had a circular-shaped bright light as the leader, and behind it were tails of light in beautiful colors: green, orange, and yellow.
Some kind of crystal?
It moved slowly and looked as if it was just above the house. The amazing thing is that it moved absolutely silently. Wow.
Yeah, that goes with the Bob thing. That is, it's just bending light.
Light,
So
yeah.
it would be.
And it's a completely different account too, the other side, like the complete other side of the world. The area into which the craft had come down in was off limits to the children, fenced off because it was deemed to be too dangerous. But they pressed as close as they could to this tangle of undergrowth and its barrier to peer within. And they saw only about 100 yards away from the mysterious object. It was described as either sitting upon the gnarled weeds or hovering slightly over them. And at this point, it still generated amazement in the gawking children. Yet this would change into alarm when the craft seemed to open to disgorge two strange beings, which were described as very thin, frail even, with slender neck and very large, outsized, almond-shaped, slanting black bug eyes, and dressed in tight-fitting, shiny black and silver one-piece suits of some sort. Some witnesses would later say that the entities also possessed long, straight black hair upon their heads. The enigmatic beings silently approached the children, although some of them would report having received telepathic contact during the encounter. One witness named Emily Trim would later explain of her version of events, saying, "All I can tell you is that the two beings were hopping along beside Lisa and I, and they were curious. They weren't touching the ground. They were almost like mimicking us. All of a sudden, they were in front of us. I described them as being about arm's reach, and we were frozen. Telepathic images started going across my face. Communication through the eyes. That's all I can really describe it as. It was just image after image after image. Those thoughts came from the man's eyes. One of the other girls standing beside me, she got more communication about the environment. And for me, mine was more technology uses and uses of technology. That's so strange.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so there are two things here that I want to remark. First off, I'm not sure about the authenticity of this because Lisa and Lauren or Emily Trim, those are not African names, right? And so, like, who are these people? And how is it that if this is what they actually said, unless it was translated? But, you know, because in the article it does say, you know, the parts where, like, it was inaudible. It almost seems as if this was a speech that they were giving, right? It feels like it just lacks authenticity. At the same time, it's like this. I don't know about you guys, but I personally have had the strangest experiences when I was younger. You know, when I was about 4 to 5 years old, and it felt like I was more in touch with the world, right? With certain things that I saw. Like when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I think I saw something that to me seemed like I'm not sure if it was an alien or if it was like a spirit or what it was, right? It like the reason why I'm reminded of this experience that I had is because of this article, right? Where that creature it seemed human. It wasn't actually like, the way they're describing, but there was something going on with its eyes. And as kids, you know how kids are, like we like to go up the slip and slide, and we like to like slap each other and kick each other. And that creature or whatever it was, it seemed more of like a bully. He was on top of the slip and slide, and he was older. He seemed older in age. And one of my friends, he was bullying one of my friends. He was bullying us as a group, but I managed to go down the slide and just got out. And I was calling out my friend to quickly go down the slide too, so he can get away from this bully. And my friend, he was worried, he was scared, so he fell on his back. And as the older bully was hovering over him, he kicked him in his eyes with both of his little legs, and then quickly went down the slide. And then that's when I noticed there was something up with his eyes. And I'll never forget it. Like, can you guys imagine? I'm 30 years old now. And
yeah,
this was something that happened when I was 3 or 4 years old. I can't even remember the exact age. But this was like one of my earliest memories ever. It was in play school. It was even before kindergarten, where we just like went to a little play school and we were just like playing. This was 1994, 1993 or 1994. And so, I see this odd figure, and I was never able to forget it. And so that's when I get really scared. So I grab my friend Mahmoud. His name is Mahmoud. I grab him from his hand, and we start running. And there were a couple other kids that, it wasn't just my friend. They weren't as scared of him as we were because he wasn't bullying them, but it almost felt like they were all in sync where, like, we've got to run now. Like, they got so scared. And so they started even running ahead of us. So I grabbed Mahmoud, and we're running super fast. And, as we're running to the other end where the gate is, there's like a gate, and then there's like a big hall. Like an open hall, right? So it's like it's fenced, and there's like a building where we go and sit and make pictures and like drawings and like the macaroni figures or whatever. And so like we went past the building and we were trying to head to the gate. And so as we're heading to the gate, everybody's just focused on running. But I look back just to see how close, the bully was or whatever he was. I look back and I see this image, right? It wasn't. It wasn't like it was almost as if it wasn't just an image. It was kind of like an apparition where he was carrying so much. It wasn't technology, but it was like advanced weaponry that I'll never forget. It looked like the strangest type of guns, explosives. It looked like he was carrying all of it on his back, and it was huge. He was carrying the biggest stash of it, and it was just the same small figure. But all of that was on his back, and he was running so fast towards us. And then when we finally got to the gate, I held on the security's pants, and I kept pulling him, and I pointed. I was like, look, he's going to catch us. And I'm looking, and there's nobody there. There's nothing there. The kid completely disappeared. We never saw him again. And it was only me and that kid, and the rest of the kids that were running with us were the only people that ever had account of what the hell happened there. And nobody believed me. Nobody ever believed us. Now my own parents know. I kept telling that story over and over and over again up until I was like 10 years old, but nobody ever believed us.